All right. Just to tie something together, what Justin and all you guys said about the 50-50 relationships. It's never 50-50, and going back to how my mother and father, um, their relationship over the years, she ran that household. She was the main cog as far as finance and how things were paid. My father went to work, came back home. She made sure that he had something to eat, clean clothes, you know, all of that stuff that maintained a relationship. It was never 50-50. I think looking back on a lot of the situations that my mother and father had, my mother worked harder than my father, you know. And he was a different type of a guy, but he made sure that we had a place to live. And if he had it, he would give it to my mother and she would do all the shopping and do all that stuff, right? But it was never 50-50. And I think in order to have a good relationship, it's never going to be 50-50 because you do things better than your partner will probably do them, no matter what it is. She cooks and she probably is a better cook than you. But in some cases, not with Ryan, he's probably a better cook than his partners or ever been.
Yeah,
But I
very
mean,
true. Very true.
that dynamic is never 50-50. It never will be, and with Justin, his writing skills are impeccable, so that will probably be something that outweighs her skill set. For me and your mother, she has skill sets that I can never get into that realm. She's a fantastic cook, but she's an excellent public speaker. And and she's had a wide range of educational type things. But so did I. I graduated with a nice college degree and all that good stuff. But I think she excels in some areas that I don't, and I excel in some areas that she doesn't, and that's what makes the balance. It's always a scale. It's always a scale. Sometimes she puts more on the scale than I do. Sometimes I put more on the scale than she does. But that's what I think make a lot of relationships work is that, it's a balance and it's never going to be 50-50. It's always a balance. And that's what makes it work.
Well, I got a question for you. Because I
Right?
always hear, like, I think that it's this interesting comparison and contrasting when it comes to 50-50, right? And whenever I hear like these therapists or life coach people or just roundtables like this, and folks that actually have experience, I always felt like if you're just gonna give 100%, it's 100, right? And you can provide the way that you know how to provide. You can nurture and provide the way you know how to nurture and provide, whatever that means. But two people coming together, giving their 100% effort in love, and you're holding the other person up. Would you say that? Because I think, now it's like I'm looking to see how much you can do versus how much you can do, and then you're butting heads versus just doing your best.
Yeah, well, it's always going to be 100% effort that you bring to the table, no matter what you do, no matter what it is. I don't care what it is. You're going to bring 100% effort, and that's what you're going to bring to a table. The effort is different than the balance, in my opinion. She may bring 100% effort to the household with whatever her skill set is, but the balance is something different because she's going to bring that skill set that you don't have.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? That
Yeah.
the effort has to be there 100%. I don't care what you do.
You
I don't
know,
care what it is. You have to give 100% on almost everything that you care about. But the balance comes into things that you bring to the table. Your understanding of how things work in a household, your understanding emotionally of how your partner works. Those are different things. That's a balance I'm talking about.
yeah.
I think when you bring up that idea of 100, 100. and you're bringing 100% effort into a relationship. You know why I think a lot of that is lost in today's relationships is because a lot of people are not um practicing monogamy. I feel like a lot of people, I think it's normal or expected for people in this generation to have, side chicks and side dudes and all of that. And so to the point of, pouring 100% into each relationship that they have is pretty much impossible. So I think now, well, now that we're having this conversation, I think this may be a revelation that I'm having that a girl who, is dating, five guys at the same time, it's not going to be possible for her to pour, 100% of herself into a relationship with each one of those guys. So she becomes a subpar partner to each one. And I think it's gonna be the same thing, vice versa. Like for a man, if he's balancing five women that he's seeing, he's not gonna be able to pour 100% into each one of those women either. And so I feel like if you are somebody that believes in monogamy and you are practicing monogamy and you're only interested in seeing one person at a time, it's a lot easier to pour into that person because they're the only that's your only focus. Um but when you hear a lot of women and a lot of men talking about having rosters and having, this woman, I'm going on a date with this woman on this day, or I'm going on a date with this person this day. And it's like you can't balance that to a point where, you're giving your full effort and you're being fully present to each person. Because it's simply impossible. No one has the energy to do that all the time. And so what ends up happening is you're becoming, a subpar partner to each person that you're dating, and none of the relationships are gonna work ultimately.
Yeah, I couldn't date in today's age. I'd be too tired.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I just couldn't do it. It would be. I don't know how you guys do that. Yeah, I don't know how you guys date.
Hey,
But I couldn't do it. It's like I look around and it's like,
jigsaw
oh
puzzle.
Lord have mercy. Back in the day, it was like, we didn't have cell phones and all that stuff to communicate with, right? None of that stuff, I had to call a chick on a landline, and that was, her mama would answer the phone, screening them calls. But man, I couldn't date today in today's society because there's too many things going on. And it's too many things going on. I just lose interest, it's like, I couldn't, I just would lose interest. For me, it's like keep it simple, stupid, because I couldn't do it today. I just couldn't. I couldn't afford it either.
And speaking of that, like the idea of, can't afford it, I think this is why we see the rise of polygamy happening. Because I feel like some people are have lost a lot of their ability to pair bond, right? To the point where two people may just may just not be enough, or maybe it's a lack of um initiative on some person's part in a relationship to where they are too lazy to get the job done or get fulfillment out of a relationship with there's only two people, or support a household where there's only two people, to the point where a lot of people are entering these polygamous relationships where there's three or more people, to where they're splitting the load of carrying a household now. And I feel that speaks to either two things. That speaks to either an insatiable desire of having multiple partners, or it speaks to um, a sense of laziness that people have where they feel like, okay, I can't do this. I need to offload some of this responsibility on someone else to carry this burden or to carry this relationship and keep it going. And I see that now a lot where it's becoming kind of standard to where, if a guy is in a relationship with a girl, a girl may be looking for another girlfriend to enter into the relationship. And now they're splitting rent three ways, instead of two. So I feel like this is a common thing that I've been seeing. Um, and it kind of disgusts me a little bit to the point where it's like this is how these women are moving, and it's like, it makes it even that more discouraging to be like, dang, this is the pool I got to choose from. This is the women that I have to, choose from as far as me trying to find a wife. And it's like, it's crazy.
It's not easy. I mean, I don't think it, to y'all point, it's probably harder now than it ever had been before, right? To find a match, like one match. It's difficult for many reasons. Ryan, you want to say something before I keep going?
I was gonna say, like, I think that this is probably more of a abstract sort of thought, and I'll make it short. I think that as the world gets older and as time moves forward, it gets a lot less innocent, right? So, I remember when, 20 years ago, I would be able to go to a club, or, 15, 20 years ago, be able to go out to a bar or something like that and meet a woman and it'd be easy. Like it'd be easy, and just the idea of actually dating, decent women that didn't really have angles. Like, I think that it was easier back then. Now, what I've seen, and this is from this is, we're all men here. This is from a male perspective. There's good women too. But I think that I see a lot of good brothers having problems, just solid brothers having problems, right? And I think you have to stick to your purpose, because in today's environment, it's just hard for, I mean, good brothers that are not looking to be with 100 different women or whatever the case may be. You just looking to meet a nice woman and be with her. It's hard, because that sort of behavior, honesty and integrity and loyalty and uprightness. I mean, you stand out, and you stand out, that sort of behavior isn't celebrated in today's culture. It's the bad boy, all of this other stuff has always been, and you can still have attractiveness. I don't have a problem getting a date, but I'm talking about someone that you can be a good brother and still have attractiveness and have swag, but it's still it's like this hard churning, pervasive sort of just fighting through brick walls, and the trauma and the baggage that gets carried. So yeah, that's my thought. But anyway.
What's the solution though? Do you feel like is it something that could be solved at least enough where
Well,
not everybody out here struggling with it?
I look at it, and Justin always messes with me about history, but I'm a history buff, right? And I like to study our people. I study this country, and I think the dynamics that we have that put us in certain situations. I don't think that I think that we're at a climactic period that has been built over hundreds of years, right? So it's not like the dysfunction within our culture and within our dating, especially with Black people, is symptoms of systems that have been put in place, narratives that have been put in place to break our family, nuclear family, and preventing the nuclear family from connecting to nuclear families and creating ecosystems and moats that are independent as a culture and as a people and a dynamic. So if that is, we're climaxing right now to the point where now where it's a gender war, and now we're not looking at the 3D chess that's being played at this level. We're just looking like, oh, you're the problem, I'm the man, and you're the woman, and you're the problem, whatever, right? I think the one thing that we all have to do, and this is just me personally, you have to follow your purpose. Because I was trying to figure all of this stuff out. I think you have to have a sound mind. You have to follow Christ. You have to find God. You have to stay prayed up. That's one. That's the first thing. You have to have your spirit together with God. And I think when you have your spirit together with God, the amount of wisdom that He will pour into you will help you have the discernment so that you can make choices with the people that you date, with the women that you date, and the same thing for the sisters, so that you're not making these. Because I'm in a single season right now, right? And I've dated a little bit, but I'm happy. I've been building myself. And I think that when you're in a toxic and a chaotic environment, because I mean, let's face it, right? We like black people have been in a toxic and a chaotic environment ever since we came over here, right? But then now it's in our culture. Our culture used to be, and our heritage used to be the backdrop and the place of rest that we go. But now it's not a place of rest anymore. They've successfully taken that from us. So I think that we have to center ourselves. We have to know who we are in Christ, pray, get the therapy that you need, build yourself, find your purpose, and be okay with being alone. Because I think that a lot of the times, and I'm guilty of it. There's a lot of in most of our people, right? Whether it's from just general generational oppression or just generational or oppression just in the system, discrimination, prejudice, whatever has, there's a mindset and just there's a lag there, and it's a heaviness and a burden. And there's a lot of people that want to be in relationships that aren't healed. And you need to be healing. You need to be growing. And I think that, the prospect of loneliness really, it's like, I want to be with somebody. It's like, it's amazing having a sister that loves you that you can hold, right? But I think a lot of the times, you have to focus on your purpose. You have to know how to be alone. You have to know how to go out and accomplish. You have to be able to be comfortable to stand on your own 2 feet. You have to learn how to encourage yourself. You have to pray daily, and that's you know once you have that set of wisdom, those sets of wisdoms about yourself, to the point where you can go forth when God will line it up for you in due time. I think that's what all of us have to do. But I think we have to get back to focusing on God and focusing on our purpose.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of good things. I think in order to bring it back, in order to provide in any relationship, you have to work on yourself and be able to continue to heal from whatever it is that you have been through, right? To be able to go in and provide for somebody else, right? And there are a couple of things that you guys said earlier when it came to 50-50 and balance. I think it all has to do with that individual couple, and they set what 50-50 means to them. It might be 30-70 sometimes. It might be something else, but it's up to them, right? You guys also talked about effort, right? Sometimes in a relationship, one day I might not have 100%, but I would look to that other person, my partner, to be able to, if I can only bring 70% that day for whatever reason, some craziness happened at work, some other stuff that I was dealing with, I only got 70%. I want her to be able to provide that other 30 that I need, right? You don't have to provide 100% every time, every day for me, right? Because I'm able to provide a lot of that for myself. But part of a relationship is to be able to provide whatever the other person is missing in that moment, right? Um, the strengths, right? There are other related to that. Daddy talked a lot about that, right? His strength might have been problem solving, right? And patience. And mama's might have been nurturing, right? Um, all of that stuff is necessary, all right, if you're building a family. At least one is going to last for a long time, like theirs has, right? And that's something that I think is important. I wonder why, or I wonder how we can um, address some of the issues that Justin brought up, right? About um, laziness, people kind of giving up on the idea of monogamy, um, and having to manage. See, I think the reality is the fact that when you out there dating in today's age and all of the technology that we have at our fingertips, and the norms in the world today, right? If you're gonna be dating, likely you are dating multiple people, right? And um, I think it's very difficult to be able to provide as much energy that is necessary to be able to move forward in a relationship to a bunch of different people, right? So it's exhausting. Um, and and so, but even with that, right, it's hard to find somebody that's going to match you. Once you do, it's important to hang on to that person. Um, and also, I think that there are good people out there, just like there's good people right here, right? Um, they exist, but it's so hard to find those people, right? So if we got to figure out, not us, I don't know, if we're gonna come up with the answer, but there has to be a way for this problem to at least get better over time. It has a lot to do with the cultural things that Ryan said, a lot to do with the systematic um, issues and pressures and things over time that he mentioned. But I mean, for us, we just got to stay hopeful. I think that at least for us and our families, that we will, continue to move forward um, and get the what we're looking for, right? Because we know what we bring to the table, right? We just need to find somebody that's gonna bring that same thing to the table as well, or something that we need, right? And then we can be cohesive together.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean, I think,
that's a good thing. Go ahead, Justin.
like to speak to, a solution, I feel like the solution is we need to see more examples of successful nuclear families. We need to see more examples of marriages that are surviving the test of time because, like, when you look at the divorce rate now, well, I think it's like in the United States, like six, no, almost 60%, something like that. And so when you have a stat like that, you have so many broken families and products of broken families that that is all they know. So you have a girl who's 20 something, and she doesn't know any examples of, a healthy household because she's never seen one. She never grew up in one. And so I think it's easy for us to discern what is a healthy relationship and what isn't because we saw our parents do it the right way. But I think the fact that there are so many like broken homes now, so many single mother households, so many divorced couples that it's practically, the norm, to the point where a lot of women and, a lot of men too, they don't know what successful relationships look like. And so when they produce children, they don't know how to operate in a successful relationship because they never had that example provided for them.
You
And
think
so I
you think it's because it's a template and it's a system that's being pushed on our people, that it's a repetitive cycle?
I think so. I mean, like I feel like there isn't in today's society, marriage is not valued. Or sticking in a partnership for, however many years, for 40, 50 years, that is not valued. What's valued now is having hot girl summers. What's valued now is, materialism. What's valued now is, Instagram and OnlyFans and, all of these things that bring you quick gratification, instead of working for something that is long lasting, that you can reap the benefits from, later. I think people are looking for quick fixes and, quick relationships, quick situationships where, they're just getting their rocks off and then just moving on to the next person. And that's men and women, in my opinion. And I feel like, we live in a generation where, attention spans are so short, that it's only natural that it's gonna translate to relationships. Like with technology, you have these people who they can't, pay attention to one thing for 5 minutes. How are they gonna pay attention to, a relationship or a person for 5 years? It's like, that I feel like that, that swipe mentality of, let me see the next person, let me see the next person, let me see the next person. I think that's translated into dating in real life to where, I feel like people are swiping on people in real life. Oh, I went on a date with this person today. Let me go on a date with the next person tomorrow, next person tomorrow, next person tomorrow. And I feel like this is the world that we're living in to where people do not know how to invest into one person at a time and see, the fruits of that time or the fruits of that labor, grow over time. Because I think a lot of people sever, what could have been a genuine connection with a good person really fast simply because this person has more money or this person has a better body or this person has this or this person has that when that person could have been that just curved could have been your soulmate. But I feel like this is the ADHD, you know, t type of generation to where they can't pay attention to anything, and therefore they can't fully invest their time or their their energy or their emotions into one relationship or to one person. Because I feel like it speaks to that insatiable desire of I gotta have more, I gotta have many of them instead of just one. Because I feel like some people feel like they'll be lacking if they have only one partner, and they don't experience multiple. So that's how I feel.
Well, let's get Daddy in on the conversation. So, Daddy, um, what I think this would be a good opportunity for you to kind of, maybe take, from what I mean, all of your experience to kind of take the football and maybe throw it at one of us from what you know, maybe ask one of us a question based off some of these different dynamics we've been talking about, and we can kind of share a quick experience or two. Do you have a question that you maybe want to ask one of your sons?
Well, I look at things from a perspective of uh, a relationship that works, and I see things, a lot different because I've been through some things that are different. I've had some broken relationships, but I've been married to your mother for 43 years. So, and my relationships in the early beginning, um, they were dysfunctional for a lot of the reasons that you guys have covered. People want to be selfish, people want to go in a different direction, people want to, more or less, I guess, influence the way you think by their behaviors, things like that. But I think that there's a lot of good partners out there that have the same values that you guys have because you guys have gotten life experiences. You've had family experiences with good examples. I mean, with good examples within your family to take and really form some opinions about relationships. But I think it boils down to you. And I think it boils down to what you want. And I think with the values that are instilled in each of you, I think that that's going to spark you, I think, to go out and find a partner that thinks like you, has your same values. And I don't think it's going to be, it may be a little bit difficult, but I think that if you stay steadfast in what you believe in and not change your values based on the dating rules of today, I think you'll be just fine and you'll find a life partner. But I think you have to be steadfast in what you believe in too. And moving forward, you have to understand that, like we have all talked about, it's never a balance in these relationships. It's never 50-50. It's always a give and take. It's always a compromise. It's always, giving into something. But if you have those values instilled in you from me and your mother, your grandparents, things like that, you will come out, I think, in a relationship that's going to be rewarding. I think it's going to be satisfying. You'll be happy. I think that's the ultimate goal in getting into a relationship. So if you're happy, that's all that counts. And I think that happiness will stand the test of time. I think it will last. Because I tell you, man, when I get up in the morning, I'm okay. I may not have everything in life that a millionaire, billionaire has, but I don't need that. I don't need that. I got You guys are the fruits, I guess, of my labor and dreams. When I look at you guys, I'm satisfied with what I've done in life. And I raised three men. I raised three successful men. And your mama had a lot to do with that, you know. And we've had differences over the years, but I think that we brought things to the table that each other had, and we instilled that in each of you guys. So I guess the takeaway, you got to stay steadfast in your values and understand that the person that you meet may not be perfect, but if they bring things to the table that match your values, then that may be a good shot for a partner.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think, one scripture, I forget the name of it, but I'll preach a little bit, is don't conform to this world, right? And I think that the culture is so ubiquitous, of just, trying to be cool. I mean, there's so many people that haven't grown up in this culture trying to be cool and, doing things as if they're in their early 20s still, right? And this is, celebrated. And it's like, it should be different. You should be maturing. You should be growing. You should be growing in wisdom and walking, in faith and seeking God to become more intelligent about how you do things. Um, I mean, I personally believe that. So I think that, and that's been the thing too, because I've been in the dating world, I want to try to compromise you, literally. I want to compromise like your way of life, like how you think. And, I've had to put my foot down a couple of times, and say, I'm not, that's nonsense. Nonsense is nonsense. I mean, even if it's celebrated, even if it's popular, if it doesn't make sense and it doesn't have, uh, I mean, a good moral backing behind it with values that stand up, that line up with who you are, don't conform to it just because it's popular or somebody that you like or you're dating is trying to fold you up and turn you into a different person. Or even if the culture is, because that's what's happening. And nowadays the culture, trying to find a part, people get eaten alive in the culture and they lose themselves. And then before you know it, you're older and you've been used up by the culture and the people that you've dated and you don't even know who you are. And you've sacrificed yourself um for what? So that's the biggest thing. If you stay committed and you don't conform yourself to the world and just transform to what that footprint is, and you keep yourself, high, with high integrity, um it's going to be for good reason, even if you need to be single for a while, maybe for a long while. That's how I look at it, because sometimes, I mean, you need to build something in those single seasons. Maybe you need to build. I see Bobby in the chat. Bobby, what do you think? We're about to close. Maybe this is a good segue into the last word.
So yeah, we're running out of time. I think we need to wrap it up. But a great conversation, a lot of great points. Um, my last thought is that there's hope and that not all it not everything is lost, right? I think that um we know what we bring, and there are many others out there. We just got to find them, right? They bring a lot to the table and can provide a lot to us as well, right? And we've seen that example, and we will be that example. And I think that Justin made a good point earlier that the world needs more of those examples. And so all we can do is our best to be that in our own way. And then I think that's going to start, rubbing off on somebody else, on another couple, on another relationship, on another parent, whoever it may be. And then it'll just, I think that trend and that the trends that we've seen, the problems that we've seen over time, traditionally, those systematic issues, those can be reversed. But I think it starts with one, right? And we can be that one. And that's my last word. I think we got to wrap it up. And it's a great talk, guys.
All right.
All right. God bless and good night.
See y'all next time. All right.
Later.